What if everything you thought you knew about Custer's last stand was a lie? For over a century, textbooks painted it as a heroic final battle, Custer and his men fighting bravely to the last man. But 2 Moons, a Cheyenne warrior who stood on that battlefield, told a very different story. A story of chaos, of soldiers breaking apart, some fleeing in terror, and others making a chilling choice you'll never read in school. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, you'll hear the shocking details straight from 2 Moons himself. And I promise it will change the way you see this battle forever. But before we continue, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating stories. It was the spring of 1876. My people, the Cheyenne, were camped along the quiet banks of the Powder River, near what is now Fort McKinney. 50 lodges stood there, filled with families, children, and the steady rhythm of life. But before the sun had fully risen, the stillness shattered. Out of the early dawn came the soldiers, Colonel Mackenzie, whom we called 3 Fingers, leading his men straight into our camp. They struck without warning. We were unprepared. Panic surged through our lodges. Men, women, and children scattered in every direction. In the chaos, we lost what we cherished most, our ponies. Every horse was driven off by the soldiers, leaving us stranded, humiliated, and broken-hearted. Yet that night, when the land was cloaked in darkness, we crept back. Silent as shadows, we slipped through the soldiers' guard. And one by one, we reclaimed what was ours, our horses. By dawn, we were gone, riding fast and far, putting as much country as we could between us and the Bluecoats. Days later, fortune guided us to a great Sioux village at Charcoal Butte. It was a sight to behold. Lodges stretched across the plain, grass thick and green, wild game abundant, and streams running pure. There, at the heart of it all, stood Crazy Horse. He greeted me not as a stranger, but as a brother. With calm fire in his eyes, he said, "I am glad you are here. We are preparing to fight the white man again." The camp was already swelling with warriors, their resolve heavy in the air. A storm was coming, and every man there knew it. By May, the grass grew tall, the horses regained their strength, and we moved toward the mouth of the Tongue River. With Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and the others, we advanced up the Rosebud. There, we collided with General Crook's forces. What followed was no ordinary skirmish. It was a furious clash. Smoke and dust turned the air black, rifles cracked, and war cries echoed across the valley. Soldiers fell in great numbers, while only a handful of our warriors were lost. Against all odds, we had triumphed. Afterward, we pushed north and settled in the valley of the Little Horn. At last, it felt as though we had shaken off the relentless grasp of the white soldiers. For the first time in months, peace seemed possible. Then came the messenger. Breathless, he entered our camp, his voice ringing out, "Prepare for a great celebration. Cook, make food ready. Prepare for a grand dance." The Cheyenne women cut tobacco, roasted meat, and laughter filled the air. Drums pounded as we celebrated our freedom from the white man's pursuit. I led my horses to the stream, letting them drink deeply before washing their hides in the cool water. Then I dove in myself, the river wrapping me in its cold embrace, washing away the dust and exhaustion of war. But as I walked back toward the camp, everything changed. Up the Little Horn, above Sitting Bull's village, a massive dust cloud rose into the sky, like a tornado tearing across the earth. Moments later, Sioux riders thundered into camp, shouting with desperate urgency, "Soldiers are coming!" Countless white soldiers. The air exploded with tension. I ran to my lodge, calling out to my brother-in-law, "Hurry! Ready the horses. The white men are here." Even before my words left my mouth, I heard it, the sharp cracks of gunfire, and in the distance, the terrifying, "Hey-yeah! Hey-yeah!" War cries rolling closer. Chaos erupted. Women scrambled to lead children to safety. Men seized their weapons. I shouted to the people, my voice cutting through the storm, "I am 2 Moon! You are headmen! Do not run! Stand your ground! "Resist the white soldiers! I will stay, even if it costs me my life." Leaping onto my horse, I galloped hard toward Sitting Bull's camp. Ahead of me, the valley had erupted into a full battle. Reno's troops were being overwhelmed. The open ground swarmed with warriors, bullets tearing the air, dust and smoke choking the sky. I watched the soldiers break. Like a herd of panicked buffalo, they plunged into the riverbed, scrambling for escape, but there was no way through. Sioux fighters pressed them hard, driving them up the bluffs, straight into another wave of soldiers waiting in wagons. The fight was far from over. What began as celebration had transformed in the blink of an eye into the battle of our lives. Messengers came thundering in, shouting that more soldiers threatened the women. The Sioux, furious, wheeled back to protect them. Chief Gall fought with fearless rage. Crazy Horse was there too, leading like a storm made flesh. I returned to my own camp, halting the women who were trying to move the lodges. From horseback I scanned the horizon, and then I saw it. Flags appeared on the eastern ridge. At first they were small, faint against the skyline, but as they drew closer I could see their order. Soldiers. 3 columns, spread in careful formation, intervals between them sharp and measured. A bugle split the air. The sound was clear, commanding. At once the men dismounted, some holding the horses and leading them back over the hill. The rest formed ranks, rifles ready. Then came the charge. The Sioux stormed up the ridge from every side, dust exploding beneath pounding hooves. We Cheyennes swung wide to the left, the others swarmed from the right. Gunfire erupted, sharp, relentless, pop, 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 so fast it sounded like thunder rolling across the hills. The soldiers held formation, some kneeling, others standing, their officers barking commands at the front. Smoke hung thick, choking the battlefield like a heavy fog, and everywhere our horses stirred clouds of dust that rose like a storm. We encircled them completely, riding, firing, wheeling away, and returning again. Like water swirling around a stone, we pressed in tighter. Soldiers fell, horses tumbled, the bluecoats collapsing in heaps. Yet one figure stood out. Amid the chaos, a man on a sorrel horse with a white blaze and stockings rode the line again and again, shouting, urging his men not to falter. I did not know his name, but he was a brave man, his courage unmistakable. Still, the circle tightened. The soldiers were trapped. Few of their bullets found their mark, while many of our shots struck home. Their horses died in droves, until only 5 remained alive. Now and then, a desperate man broke from the group, sprinting for the river. Each one fell before he got far. At last, only about 100 soldiers stood on the hill, with 5 horsemen clustered close. The bugler still sounded his notes, his calls cutting through the din. He, too, was brave, unyielding even as death closed in. Then it happened. A chief among them was struck down. Word swept the warriors. "Long Hair, Custer is dead." Whether it was true, I could not say. But the cry surged like fire through the camp. The survivors tried to break free. 40 men and the riders on the last 5 horses surged toward the river, led by the sorrel horse rider. He wore buckskins, his black hair long, his mustache thick, and in his hand gleamed a great knife. He shouted until his voice was hoarse, urging his men forward. Dust covered their uniforms so thickly I could not tell rank from private. One soldier ran far ahead, a single figure racing down toward the water, then looping back over the ridge. For a heartbeat, I thought he might escape. But a Sioux rifle cracked, and the man fell with a shot to the head. He wore braided stripes on his sleeves. He was the last. When the gunfire finally fell silent, all of them lay dead. Their bodies were stripped of gear, uniforms turned to rags, their faces forever stilled where they had fallen. That night there was no dancing. Victory was ours, but joy did not come. Instead, grief fell heavy on us, for we all knew the reprisal that would follow. The next day I rode out again with the Sioux leaders and 2 of my fellow Cheyennes. We came to count the dead. One man carried a bundle of sticks. For each lifeless body we found, he laid 1 stick aside. That was how we tallied the fallen. And as the sticks piled higher, the truth of the battle revealed itself. No soldier had survived. When the battlefield finally fell silent, we counted the dead. 388 bodies in all. Among them lay 39 Sioux and 7 Cheyennes, with nearly 100 more of our people wounded. Some soldiers were cut with knives to make certain they were truly dead. Warrior women, overcome with rage and grief, disfigured a few corpses. But most were left as they had fallen, untouched by further hand. I remember the man with the great mustache. We found him lying downhill near the river's edge. Custer himself lay higher up on the crest. His buckskin jacket had not been taken. The Sioux said, "That is a great leader." That is Longhair. I could not confirm it, for I had never seen him before. Yet one thing I knew for certain: the rider on the sorrel horse had shown the greatest courage of any man that day. His voice, his defiance, still echoed in my mind. At sunset, our young men galloped hard up the Little Horn, only to stop and stare. Far downriver, a great steamboat was arriving, its smokestack belching black clouds into the fading sky. More white soldiers were coming, many more. I gathered my people at once. We broke camp and rode swiftly up the Little Horn into the Rotten Grass Valley. We stayed only 3 days before pressing east, retracing our old trail. Sitting Bull turned north along Yellowstone, and from that day forward, I never saw him again. 388 sticks. That was the count. A number whispered through history, a silent measure of victory and loss. I, 2 Moons, was there. I saw the dance before the storm, the desperate courage of the man on the sorrel horse, and the terrible price paid by both sides on that bloody ground. So, what do you think? Was 2 Moons telling the unfiltered truth of what really happened, or has time blurred memory and legend? One thing is certain: his account doesn't match the glorified version we were all taught. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Custer's men died in a desperate fight, or in panic and collapse? Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading every comment. And if you want more hidden history like this, hit subscribe, because the next eyewitness account I reveal is even more explosive than this one.